Hi, this is Artifacts of Mars, and this is Disclosure. Today we're going to look at Curiosity Soul 64, right mastcam. There's a number of photos and a number of very interesting objects, so let's get started. First thing I want to show you is a bush which is sitting up on 3 or 4 spindly stems right over here. Uh, Somebody want to call that a rock? You're crazy if you do. You're plumb loco. Loco in the cabeza is a Spanish saying. Quality's rather poor, but we can see the bushy area up here and stems leading up to it, and perhaps more stems, branches and whatnot right inside. So that's good. There we have a bush out in the open where you can see it, along with a number of it's like scrub brush down in this area, that kind of reddish, brownish stuff. There you have plants right out in the open once again. So what are people doing? Why don't you pressure your congressman about this? I know Obama's doing his best to get us into a nuclear war with Russia. They haven't forgot about that, but life must go on. Alright, this is an interesting structure. It's got the greenish, bluish plant life on it that we're not used to seeing. Kind of like that ivy stuff that grows. This is a fascinating photo. It's got just an incredible number of items in it. Here's something that's perfectly rectangular. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to hazard a guess. I'm just pointing it out. You're going to call that a boulder? You're crazy. Alright? You're out of your mind if you do. And again, if we go down to the bottom here, we have some interesting items here. I'm going to not say anything about them really, pending further study. Just going to point some of these things out. Here we have an interesting vent hood style artifact. I used to love to study the vent hoods, is what I call them, on the Spirit and Opportunity photos, Mars Exploration Rover photos. So, anyway, interesting objects notwithstanding, we're going to take a look at the real darling of the photo, which is this unusual structure. I'm stumped as to what kind of structure that could be. Private house, perhaps? It doesn't seem to be typical of Martian architecture. This is what's bothering me. Well, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess. I would say it's a dwelling, probably. I would think. Remember, I modded these photos slightly. I didn't go overboard with it. I modded them slightly for clarity. Look real closely. Looks like a fence running through here. That's bizarre. It's all segmented and everything. Totally artificial. You can get these photos from the modded photos from Snake and the Hunter Enterprises. I'll have all that taken care of. Here's another structure. It's kind of rounded arch type structure. Bizarre as usual. Here's kind of like a foundation or something, and another right here. This one's really rectangular. It's really nice. Looks newer than most. And then we have an artifact right here on the edge. Look at these right angles. Aren't they beautiful? That's not a rock. No way. That is an artifact. It is a structure of some kind. Maybe even a vehicle. Without seeing the whole object, that would be difficult to say. And we'll take one quick glance at the foreground here. Unusual object, unable to identify. Here we can see stems sticking up. Other than that, this is a fascinating photo with just relic after relic in it. There's a relic right there. They're rectangular and it's got this rounded projection coming out of it. Here's another apparent relic. There's relics all over the place in this photo. It's beyond bizarre that they can simply ignore all this evidence. It's just evidence after evidence after evidence. Here's a rectangular object. And right below that, there's more of that plant growth. Kind of bushy plant growth. It's not standing up on stems like this other plant was over here. Wherever that is. Trying to bring that up one more time. There it is. That's just amazing they can ignore a bush like that and pretend it's not there. They're crazy. They're out of their freaking minds. Right? And people, you need to get on your congressman. I know Obama is thinking about getting us into a nuclear war with the Russians. Until that happens, I'm going to continue with my research. Alright, we're going to move to the next slide and show some more plants and artifacts. Alrighty. This is slide number 2. I have them all upon Snake and the Hunter Enterprises, by the way, including the originals, so you can compare them. This is kind of a wow moment. Right here we have like a rectangular slab, and it has a circular, or what appears to be a circular hole. From this perspective, I can't really tell 100% that that's circular, but that would be my guess. I mean, what the dickens? Somebody had to have created that. Obviously, it's artificial. Let's see if we can get a better look at that. What the dickens? Is this just a sinkhole or something? A sinkhole in solid rock? I don't think so. So, we've obviously got somebody had to cut that, and it sure wasn't the rover. Alright? Let's get that straight. Somebody cut that, and it wasn't the rover. I'm doing a lot of this stuff on the fly lately. Here's an interesting object. Don't know what to make of it, although it seems to have a lot of plant growth on it. There's kind of a whitish object, and we have this bar that goes around. Apparently artificial, worthy of many hours of study. And again, yet another bizarre object right here. This one stands some chance of being just a natural rock. I don't want to go too far out. So that might be a natural rock, possibly. So we're going to leave that. Right here, we have something that looks like a pipe or a hose or something It goes from here to over here and casts a shadow. It's like a pipe or a hose. This whole area that it photographed on Sol 64 is complete and utter enigma. It's truly bizarre. Here's another one. Apparently a piping system right in here. Tough to see. You'll need to drag and drop from Snake and the Hunter Enterprises and open it in a viewer and look the photos over. But again, up here we have much larger pipe and it's easier to see. So there's pipes running all through this area, apparently. I've been of the opinion that there may be an underground civilization on Mars, so that's what they may be supplying. Perhaps water, perhaps something else. And another round circle. This whole area is bizarre, beyond imagining. We have little tufts of green everywhere, more plants, just obvious plants. And there's no arguing it. I mean, come on. You can see them for yourself. So let's make a fuss with our legislators. Other than that, photo has some. Here's an interesting object. I almost forgot about this one. Kind of a rectangular artifact, but the main attraction is it's got this hole right here, the mouse hole shaped hole. There's another hole right over here. Bizarre. I mean, that's an artifact. Looks metallic too. That'd be my guess. And then it has this part right here. Another hole. There's something green inside it. That is bizarre. And it's obviously an artifact, so don't give me any flack. More artifacts here. You know, wow. So all I got to say about that one is wow. Could be natural, but I don't think so. So there you go. There's more to come. We have foundations right here. I've seen foundations like these for buildings up at Hemlock Lake here in upstate New York, so I'm going to show you more about the foundations. They appear to be made out of some brick-like material. If you look really closely, they appear to be made out of bricks, basically, or something similar. It may not be the exact technology that we use here on Earth, but bricks or cinder blocks or that kind of thing, rectangular blocks. And it's fairly obvious that's what they're made out of. So there you go again. More evidence. So let's raise hell with our legislators. And I apologize, Sol 64 is going to take a little while because there's a lot of ground to go over. So it's going to be a little on the boring side at times, and I realize this. There's a lot of information here. Here's another artifact. I think I've about done everything here, so I'm going to proceed to the next slide. Thank you. Okay. Slide number 3. Not a huge amount of objects in this one, but we're going to take a look at a few things. This is apparently some sort of metallic object. Looks almost like it has a handle on top of it. I don't think that's what that is. I don't think it's a handle, but maybe it's a scoop or something. Looks totally bizarre and out of place, and what it's doing sitting there, I don't know. Maybe it's somebody's rover from many years past. Now, if you look really closely, there I say it, there's patches of green all up above here, and kind of grayish too, and it's occluding the field behind it. Bushes, folks. More bushes. Hundreds of them. Here's a little foundation or something, an artifact. Again, you can see the right angles. So there you have another one. And more of those pipes running through right here. I don't believe they're tree roots or plant roots or anything. I think they're pipes. And here's an interesting object. It's going to take some study to get an exact shape on what this is. Looks like there may be a little track or something. I'll say it's almost roughly the shape of an Egyptian ankh. But as for what it is, I have no idea. Definitely artificial. I don't think we're seeing anything that's natural there. Now if we look closely, we have an object. It's not sitting on a stem, it's sitting on a post with a hole in it. It's got this big hole in it. It looks almost like a meter. That is bizarre. Not the first time I've seen something like that, by any means. Here's more artifacts over here. It's kind of a H-shaped thing. And more artifacts here. And more small bushes here. These Soul 64 photos are just a treasure trove of different objects and plants. There isn't any question. So, when do we kick them in the rear end and get them to start telling us the truth? I mean, really, when some NASA scientist says that there's nothing but plants on, nothing but rocks and dust on that plant, they ought to have their mouths washed out with soap. That's what you do with wires, right? You put a piece of life buoy in their mouth. I heard that works best. You wash their mouth out with soap. Wires and people with filthy mouths and things of that nature. So I would definitely wash their mouths out with soap for lying. Well, this whole photo is just treasure trove of objects. Go on Snake and the Hunter Enterprises, drag and drop them, study them, see what you can find. I haven't fully studied this photo, but we got more coming, so we'll get right to that. Thank you, and we'll go to the next slide. Okay. And here we have the fourth photo in the series. This object that I'm pointing at is very, very odd. Frankly, I'm stymied by it. Kind of it looks like about two or three dozen little rectangular pieces sticking up from the ground. That's what it looks like. At angles, of course. I hesitate to call it a plant. I don't think it is, but I could be wrong. Something is very, very wrong with this picture. I don't even know whether it's natural or artificial. And we can see vegetation all around it. There's vegetation over this area. It's all green. There's a bush or something. Here's a curiosity, to say the least. No pun intended. Kind of looks like a storm cellar, type of storm cellar they have in the Midwest because of the tornadoes. That's not what it is, but that's what it reminds me of. Now, take a look at this though. This structure is essentially a piece of a foundation. I used to frequent Hemlock Lake, and we had foundations down there, so I know what one looks like. They get all broken down over time, and they get covered with moss. That's what we have there. And strangely enough, we have other things that are artificial that go right along with this. Take a look at this area. You see how we have these hollow areas and there are little struts going up to it? That's bizarre. It's some kind of underground structure apparently. I do suspect there may be Martians living underground, so that's what we have. Let me zoom in. No, that's not a natural formation, whatever it is. So there we have more evidence. We need to get people involved and get them to demand answers from our erstwhile government. Some bushes, plants, right there. And close up, small bushes right in this area. You see them, they're all green. This photo's been modded, but not much. And here we have a structure. It goes right along with everything else we've seen. All in all, this is a very curious photo, but I'm going to show something in one sec here. I actually skimmed right over it. I'm taking a look to see if there's anything else I wanted to show. Here's an obvious artifact. It's not set into the ground the way a rock would be, and it's got kind of a rectangular shape, and there's a side piece there. Here's yet another odd object. Same type of thing. Not set into the ground. Looks like it's been put there not terribly long ago. The sharp viewer will have noticed something. Dun 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 dun. Here we have an object which is located in between two parallel tracks, as it were. This wasn't done by the rover. I'm at a loss other than it's not natural. It's some strange object like the vent hoods that I used to talk about so much on Spirit and Opportunity photos. And tracks are parallel and they continue over here. Call them tracks just because I don't know what else to call them. Uh, that's not natural either. Obviously not, and this was obviously not caused by the rover because the rover couldn't go over that. It would crash. So whatever these were, they were created by intelligence. Something with intelligence. Martians. I think that should be obvious. So they have more evidence yet. It's just incredible that all this can be ignored. Probably another foundation. Once again, packed full of evidence. And we're going to go to slide number 5. In this picture, I'm going to show some foundations. Like I mentioned, I seen plenty of these old foundations from Hemlock Lake, from days when Hemlock Lake was had houses around it. Here is a classic foundation that went to some kind of a building at one time. Like I said, I've seen this before. This looks exactly like the foundations type of thing you have down at Hemlock Lake. Those are a little older and a little more crumbling, but same thing. And another, once again, a piece of a foundation. It's a building foundation. And, again, a pipe or a cable. This one's unusual because of its length. It starts right about here and it heads most of the way across the photo. It's very unusual. And there appears to be a flag or something right there, which wouldn't surprise me any. There appears, it looks like a rectangular base. So I'm seriously wondering if somebody is surveilling the place. I mean, the pipe casts a shadow, so I know it's there. It's relatively easy to see. We got decent eyes. So there we have. I'm wondering if somebody's surveilling the place. Get ready to build, I don't know. And here we have yet another, it looks like a pipe going right across here. A lot of pipes that are readily evident in these photos. And how this evidence can be ignored, I don't know. You'd have to be a complete and utter nut job to call them rocks. I mean, rock is something that's amorphous that sits there on the ground. Alright, up in this area, plants, overgrowing structures as near as I can tell, like very old structures, and a possible vehicle right here. That sure looks like it could have been a vehicle at one time. It's probably no good now. This is just outrageous. They can get away with not telling the public about this. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to tell you, trying to show people that there are artifacts and structures in these photos. It's not a joke. It's not a gag. I'm not jerking your chain. I'm not shucking and jiving you. I'm trying to show you what's in there. You can take it or leave it. I suggest you take it and demand answers. Another little foundation and an odd circular object here. But we also have strange circular objects right in this area. Might just be flat natural stones, I don't know. Not going to go in much detail there. That about wraps it for this photo. Once again, very, very strange objects. Many of them not natural. Plants are natural, obviously. But this foundation surely is not natural. I've seen foundations before. I know what they look like. I don't need a scientist to tell me what one looks like. And of course, some usual water and green plants. Getting used to seeing both of those. That is just blatantly obvious water. And the sides are relatively straight, so I'm thinking maybe it might be an irrigation ditch or canal. That would all add up with looking at the piping in the area. The pipes I showed, like this one, it would all add up that might be a irrigation canal of some sort. Well, there you have it for this photo. We'll go on to the next. Hey, it's Artifacts of Mars again. Blatant vegetation. It couldn't be any clearer. That's on this outcropping. I think I've shown this outcropping before. But it's pretty clear. And there are obvious vines that are hanging right down right in this area. I can't get any clearer than this. There's a vine that hangs down there. I can see individual leaves and stem. Rocks cannot explain this. Neither can volcanic activity or anything like that. I'm very sorry, you debunkers. This is case closed. These are plants. And again, more plants on this rock area right in here. Same type of vines, probably. Just blatantly obvious. If you can't see it, you're blind. I'm sorry. Here's an interesting object. It looks like yet another pipe. See how it goes through here and out there? I'd say the construction techniques are a little bit on the sloppy side. Here's an odd formation. I don't know what to make of this. It almost looks like a skeleton, but I don't know. It's beyond my ken. See if we can zoom in. Almost looks like a skeleton, doesn't it? Very, very odd object. Take a good look at, and then go on Snake and the Hunter and drag and drop it. Looks like maybe it was a skeleton and somebody was carrying a tool and got dropped. Died right there. I'm going to see if we can find anything else while we're at it. Just, you know, the big stuff here is this pipe or cable or whatever it is, and these vines which are clearly hanging down from the rock face. If that is rock, and it might be a structure. But I'm just assuming, for the sake of argument, that it's a rock face and leaving it at that. I'm more interested in the plants than I am that thing. And again, here we have more green plants hanging down from the rock face. It's just incredible that this evidence can be ignored. What the hell's the matter with people? Alright, here's an artifact which is sticking up and it's being propped up by a couple of objects. That's what it looks like, anyway. William actually may be behind it. As for what it is, it's an artifact. It's rectangular, sticking up. Some kind of an artifact. The green plants are all through here, little splotches everywhere. The vines hanging down. Just blatant evidence. But here's the darling of the photo. I'm kind of stymied by this. It appears to be... This looks like a rock, but it's flat, but it's propped up by whatever this is. So it's propped up by this rod or whatever that sticks up. It's not lying flat on the ground, it's propped up. That's what makes it so odd. There's a rectangular hole right in front of it. I mean to the left. And that's my personal bias. I tend to call it in front of it because I would tend to think that this thing would be the front of it. That's just the way I perceive things. So what is it? I'm stumped. Folks, it casts a shadow. As usual, it's right at the edge, where we can't see the whole thing. I'm stumped. Looks like a rock, but I don't see how it can be. Other than that, I think we've about done this photo. So we'll move on to the next. Okay, last one. This is a baby of the lot, in the sense that there isn't that much in it. When you look at the primary object, this looks like a very small structure with clearly defined legs. I wouldn't dare try to hazard a guess as to what it would do. It's probably been sitting there forever and a day. It's got green plants growing all over it, as usual. Those vines. I'm going to have to come up with a name for the vines. That light ground cover that I see in many of these photos, I've named that Terra Induco Minimus. Just means small ground cover. That's a structure of some kind. It's pretty clear as a structure. Here on Earth we make small structures like that. Do various things, parks and such. So let's look over here. This doesn't look natural. You know, this triangular object sticking up. And this object doesn't look natural. What they are, I would have no idea. This one is curious, but I don't care about that one really. There's not much in this photo. I might actually go back to the previous photo. There's a little of the vines on top of this boulder again. They seem to be everywhere. I mean, that's the type of place where a vine grows after all. That's it. Not much in this photo at all. Just some odd things and then one structure. Maybe a skull here. The eye sockets would be too big. Don't know what it is. Some plants close up. These photos are just a treasure trove. I'm gonna go back. There's one object in this photo that I missed. I'm gonna see if I can find it. It's like an I-beam shaped object. I missed it last time. Now, when you drag and drop this photo, if I don't find it, it's not terribly obvious. You can drag and drop this photo onto your desktop, and then you can look at. Looks almost like an I-beam. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to find, unfortunately. And just to recap, you're seeing artifacts and plants and structures. There isn't any question, folks. I mean, we can see roots, plant roots and stuff coming, going right through this area. Don't waste my time saying it's a rock. I don't want to hear it. That's absurd. No, not everything is an artifact and not everything is a plant. But some of them are. Like this frond-like plant sticking up here. More right here. And I need help. I need you to contact your representatives and say this stuff isn't right. We're not being told the truth. We demand answers. And, I hope we don't get into a shooting war with the Russians and the Chinese. That'd be real bad. Unfortunately, it's a real possibility. Another possibility is since Chinese hold much of our debt, they could wind up seriously messing with our economy. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Until that does, I'm going to continue to do Mars photos. I'm not seeing the object that's somewhere in here. It looks like a little I-beam. That's about it. Here we go. I got it drawn. Right here it is. This looks like a little I-beam or something. And he has some other curious objects right around it. They're all through these photos, folks. This is not apophenia or anything like that. That's an insult by people who aren't even qualified to make a diagnosis. That's why it's an insult, not a diagnosis. Unless it comes from a psychiatrist who has examined somebody in detail, then they are allowed to make a diagnosis like that. No one else can. It's absurd anyway. These are structured objects. They're plants. It just drives me out of my mind that we're being lied to like this. I'm not the greatest of public speakers, obviously, but the one thing I am is sincere. I hope you understand that. No, I'm not a silver-tongued devil. But I do mean what I say. There are artifacts, plants, and structures in these photos. I'm not BSing you. I'm not giving you a load of you-know-what. Plants are hanging down here. It's there. This may even be a structure. I can't really tell, but it looks like one. Right underneath here. You're being lied to, folks. So, contact your representatives and let them know you want answers and you want them now. I'm Artifacts of Mars. Got a little long here. I'm tired. It's late. Have a good night. Good day wherever you are. And start studying those photos.